So there are so many things in a marriage and in Yiddishkeit. There are so many things that we want and need. Like in Yiddishkeit, from the Eibishter, we want many things. We want chesed, we want rachamim, we want his protection, we want his kedusha, we want to feel spiritual, holy. And Chassidus says, that's not him. That's not him. Like the famous story of the Tzemach Tzedek sitting on the Alter Rebbe's lap. You know the story. And he was tugging on the Rebbe's lapel. And he said, Zayde. And the Alter Rebbe said, that's not a Zayde, that's a jacket. So he ran his fingers through the Rebbe's beard. And he said, Zayde. And the Alter Rebbe said, that's not the Zayde, that's hair, it's a beard. And a while later, he was playing behind the Alter Rebbe, and he called Zayde, and the Alter Rebbe turned around, and the Tzemach Tzedek said, there's the Zayde. What does that mean? First of all, that this boy was way too mature for his age. But the Alter Rebbe knew that this was something that he could understand and appreciate. So when he tugged on the lapel, he said, that's not the Zayde. Where is the Zayde? And the Tzemach Tzedek understood that when you call someone by their name and they react to their name, that's them. In Chassidus, we know that there are many names for Hashem. Obviously, they're all holy and they're all powerful. But then there is the Eibishter himself that is beyond any names. Like in Torah, when the Eibishter says, Anochi, most of the time, the Eibishter is speaking about something. So when it says, Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe, who is saying that? Who's narrating? Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe. So the Eibishter is speaking, but he's not speaking about himself, he's speaking about Hashem. Or Vayemer Elikim Yehi Oir. Who's the narrator? The Eibishter. But he's not talking about himself, he's talking about Elikim. So the Eibishter is telling you what Elikim said, what Elikim did, what Havaya said. But then there are times when the narrator becomes personal. Anochi Hashem Elikecha. There are no names. It's just me. Beyond names. That's where true Achdus takes place. If we can get past all things and just get to the person, to the Etzem, that's where no separation can interfere and two become one. On the level where you have a name, well, your name is not your husband's name. He has his name, you have your name. So there isn't a complete oneness. There's a joining, there's a closeness, but not a oneness. real oneness happens where there are no names, or in fact, where there is nothing at all. Just to have each other. Right? So here is a very, for some reason, controversial topic that is really important at this stage in our history. Before the coming of Mashiach, we have to get to a level that includes everybody, is something that did not exist in earlier generations, which makes us receptive to Mashiach. Something that didn't happen in the past, but something that is easily attainable by everyone, because nobody can be left out. So look what he says here in today's Hayom Yom. He's talking about different titles, and he says there is the title Chassid. And a Chassid has three levels or three aspects. Number one, a Chassid is someone she'en yonei ha'olam eino matridim u'mevalvelin oisei. It's a level where the Gashmias just doesn't distract you anymore. You're not worried, you're not distracted by the physical. That's a chassid. And this, everyone can attain. And therefore everybody should attain. The second aspect of being a chassid, shekol in yonov heim elikus. That everything you do is godliness. Everything. And although this is not impossible, but it is not for everybody. Not everybody can reach this. And then there is a third level. What says in the Zohar, who is a chassid? One who does kindness with his maker. Imkan delay with his nest. Upirish b'sefer shel beinanim. In Tanya, he explains that means doing mitzvahs for the sake of the Eibishter and not merely to satisfy your spiritual hunger. Here the Rebbe doesn't say whether this is for everybody. Huh? So it's very interesting because in Tanya he says that is the highest level tzaddik. Even a tzaddik gomer doesn't always have this. So in Tanya he seems to be saying that this is the most distant, the most unavailable level in the world. That you have to be greater than a tzaddik gomer. And that's why they are called B'nai Aliyah. They transcend even the tzaddik. But here in Hayom Yom, the Rebbe doesn't say it's not available. Which is really interesting because now, 200 years after the Tanya, not only is this level available, it's really the only level available. The only way to serve the Eibishter is doing it for him. In previous generations, people had spiritual talent, people had spiritual content, people understood godliness and pursued godliness to different levels and so on. And then you could say, this level is reachable, this level is not reachable. Excuse me. But if you're doing it for the Eibishter, That's available to everybody.
You can get this. What is that?
I don't know how to So, we want to talk about Avas Hashem. Doesn't it seem a little bit of a contradiction? We learn about God's greatness, infinite, bli gvul, ein sof, kol yochel. And then we're told to love him with all our heart. It does sound a little bit of a... You convince me that he's very far, very different, unreachable, unknowable. Right? What do we know about the Eibishter? That les machshava tfisa bei. That's what we know. So we can't understand him. We can't reach him. But you should love him with all your heart. It's not possible.
We're also told he's everywhere and he's in your reach. He's right there.
So what exactly is the message? Most people who learn Chassidus will tell you that there are three levels. There's a level called Memale Kol Almin, where God fills the world. He's everything. On that level, the godliness that's in the world is finite. Just like the world is finite, the godliness in the world has to be finite. Because if it was infinite, the world wouldn't be able to handle it. On this level, the world is significant to him because it's the godliness of the world. So you can't say the world is not significant. Very much like there's an ahava, there's a love that you can have for the Eibishter that is kihu chayecha. You love him like life itself, because he is life. Now that kind of ahava would not move you to Mesiras Nefesh. Make sense? You love the Eibishter because he is your life. So you would give up your life? That ahava will not produce Mesiras Nefesh, because you love him because he is life. That doesn't convince you to give up your life.
What life are we talking about giving up? Dying?
Yeah. So when you say the Eibishter is as precious as life, then you can't turn around and say life is not precious. So that's called Memale Kol Almin. Life is important, the world is important, and the godliness is according to the world. That's called the Shechina. Godliness, Shechein, living in our condition, within our world. Then there's a level called Sevev Kol Almin. That's infinite, too big to fit into the world, so it surrounds the world. And that's not the godliness that actually creates the world, but it is the source. So on that level, He is not a creator. He is above creation. That's called Sevev Kol Almin. On that level, the world is insignificant. That's where Mesiras Nefesh happens. The world is nothing, it's insignificant, the Eibishter is everything, so you give up everything for him. Then there's a third level, which is called Atzmus. He himself. So it seems that that third level is even higher, and on that level, nothing matters. Seviv Kol Almin at least surrounds the world. But God himself is so much higher than the world that there is no world. So he's not in the world, he's not bigger than the world, there's no world. So now the question becomes this. When we are given mitzvahs to perform, we are given a shlichus to perform mitzvahs and make the world holy and make a dira b'tachtenim. Is there some place within the Eibishter where that's not important? Because the world is not important, creation is not important. So mitzvahs are not important either. If you ask most people, they will tell you that that is the case. That above the level of Seviv Kol Almin, there is nothing, just him. There are no mitzvahs, there's no Torah, there's nothing. Which, if you say it in simple English, it sounds terrible. God wants you to do mitzvahs. He really wants you to do mitzvahs. But then again, it doesn't really matter to him. That is such a bad message. So misleading. So in the Bar Mitzvah Maimer, every little boy says and quotes the pasuk, Im tzadakta matitem loy v'rabu peshecha matasa loy. If you're a tzaddik, what does God get from this? And if you're very bad, what does it harm him? It doesn't. And you walk away with the impression that you just started putting on tefillin because you're a bar mitzvah boy, but it doesn't really matter to the Eibishter. That is really, really misleading. And then there are other consequences. The Gemara says that when after Mashiach comes, mitzvahs will be bottled, which means we won't do mitzvahs anymore. God forbid. How is it possible for a Jew who knows a little bit about to actually believe that there will be a time when we won't do mitzvahs? Mitzvahs is just a temporary project? So I got to tell you, I was speaking to an assembly at Beis Rivka in New York. Huh? A moment of Golus? Anyway, so the girls wrote questions that they didn't want to ask out loud.
Is this high school or seminary?
High school. And most of the questions were about boys. Talking to boys, dating. The teachers
By a loudspeaker. We'll sing a Mashiach song, one or the other.
The teachers who were there were very embarrassed. The next day we had a meeting with the teachers. And they were ashamed of what the girls had asked. But the truth is, those are good questions. Perfectly normal questions. What was upsetting was that one of the girls said, "Why do we have to do all this? It doesn't matter to him, and I don't care, so what are we doing?" So she wasn't asking, does it matter to him? She assumed the pashtus that he doesn't care.
He
And
being Hashem.
Hashem, and I don't care, so what am I doing? That question was disturbing. How could a girl who goes to yeshiva come away with the impression that the Eibishter does not care about mitzvahs? Chassidus explains, Rambam says that one of the ikrim, one of the things we have to believe be'emunah shleima, is that the mitzvahs will never be changed. HaTorah hazois lo tehei muchlefes, which means the Eibishter will never change the mitzvahs. So Chassidus asked, I think it's the Rebbe, what do you care if he does? Why is that such an important thing to believe? It would be just as good if we would say that the Eibishter can change his mitzvahs anytime he wants, and we don't mind. So why is it that we have to believe be'emunah shleima that the mitzvahs will never change? So Chassidus answers, you have no idea what a mitzvah is. The mitzvah is him. And just like he can't change, the mitzvah can't change. In other words, there is no level, there is no place, there is no part of the Eibishter where mitzvahs are not essential to him. There is no level, there's no madrega, where there was an Eibishter and there were no mitzvahs. There's no such thing. The mitzvahs are him. And just like he can't change, the mitzvahs can't change. So it's not like at some point the Eibishter put together a list of mitzvahs and said, this is what I decided that I want this. He didn't decide. There was never a question. There was no choice. This is him. That's what it means in the Zohar. Eiraisa v'kutsha brichu kulu chad. Not that Torah and the Eibishter are connected. They are one and the same. Kulu chad. So if the mitzvahs are one with the Eibishter, what do you mean he's going to change them? It's not a shopping list. This is him. So what does it mean that after Mashiach comes we won't do mitzvahs? You're not even allowed to think such a thing. after Mashiach comes, tefillin will no longer be a mitzvah. It'll be tefillin. Shabbos will not be a mitzvah. It will be Shabbos. Mitzvah means tzivui, commanded. After Mashiach comes, we won't need it to be a commandment. It will be our nature, just like it is the Eibishter's. So then the mitzvahs will really be essential. More than today, not less. You would think this is such a fundamental issue. How can we miss this? So what does it mean? Im tzodakta matiten loy. What is that saying? So you got to be careful with the words. It doesn't say if you put on tefillin, it doesn't do anything for the Eibishter. It says if you become a tzaddik, it doesn't do anything. Because whether you're a tzaddik or not, the tefillin are him. So even if you're not a tzaddik, and you're not ever going to be a tzaddik, but you got to put on tefillin. That's what it's saying. It's not saying there's a part of the Eibush there where mitzvahs don't count. Your spiritual growth doesn't count. So whether you're a tzaddik, a beinoni, a rosha, an idiot, it doesn't matter. Do the mitzvah. Because the mitzvah is him. So let's put it in dramatic terms that people get a little uncomfortable with. Why did God create the world? Huh? So some people say it's because he is good, and it is the nature of the good to do good. So he created the world to do good. Thank you. That's not a really good answer. Because what does it mean that he is good? Goodness is part of creation. So you can't say God created the world out of goodness. He created goodness. The question is, what motivated him to create goodness? You can't say goodness. The same is true when people say God created the world out of love. Chesed. According to Kabbalah, Chesed was created on Sunday. Gvura was created on Monday.
The essence of creation, the motive, in the nothingness, would have to be love and good. Because otherwise Hashem would not create.
You're right, but those are not good answers. Because that's part of creation. So to say he created the world out of kindness, and then he creates kindness, then kindness can't be the motivation. Yeah. So the truth is, he created the world kindly. That's true. He created the world lovingly. That's true. But why? Then there's the explanation, he is a king, and a king has to have subjects. Ein melech b'loyam. And again, it's not a good answer because Malchus is part of creation. So once he becomes a king, then he needs people. But when did he become a king? So why did he create the world? So the Alter Rebbe was not satisfied with any of these answers, and he went looking, and he found a medrash that everybody ignores. The medrash that says that the Eibishter created the world because he had a taiva for a dira b'tachtenim.
What about the bad that's in the world?
The bad.
There's good, there's bad.
Yeah,
So how do we explain that?
right. That's the other problem with that answer. He created the world to do us a favor. Oh, really? Could he have been lonely? Huh? Well, really, it depends on what you mean by lonely. What is lonely? Now, this is a crucial point. What does it mean when a person feels lonely? Aren't there times when you just want to get away and be lonely? And it's a pleasure? So what is lonely? What is that? So let's put it this way. I got to tell you this problem. It already says in Chassidus all of these things, but when you say it in English, people get upset. Because then it sounds real. It can't be that real. The Eibishter is eternal. He always was. And he always was perfect. Then he created the world. What are you seeing? What's undeniable, without getting into the Eibishter's subconscious motivations, what is most obvious is he always was, he is perfect, he is everything, and it's not enough. It's not enough for him. Isn't that what? So as soon as you open up the Torah and it says, Bereshis bara Elikim, what do you know? You know that he is perfect without the world. But he's not content. Huh? So what is it that he's missing? If he's perfect? Huh? How would you like to be the only thing in existence? I mean, for more than a week. For a week it might be fun. Peaceful. So we could say, the Eibishter existed before there was a world. He was Yechidei, it was the only thing and there was nothing besides him. Hello, is that not a problem? Would you be content? You should be content, right? You should.
But if you don't know anything else, you don't know you're not content. This is all you know. Why would you be content?
So here's what we're being told. He needs nothing. Nothing.
Shouldn't even need a deer with him.
Wait.
He shouldn't even.
Not what? He needs nothing because he is lacking nothing. And he creates a world because he is not content being everything. So it turns out that the more perfect you are, the more you want to be with someone other than yourself. A person who wants to be perfect, is trying to be perfect, is working on being perfect, doesn't need anybody else getting in the way. That's why the guy who wants to be a perfect husband is going to be a terrible husband. Because if you want to be a perfect husband, do it yourself. Don't involve another person. But if you're already perfect, and you have so much, and no one to share it with, we learn from God that that's not good. So let's make this very clear. The need to share what you are with someone else makes no sense. It is not reasonable. And that's why the Medrash calls it a taiva. What is a taiva? The simple definition of taiva is you're no longer hungry, but you want dessert. That's a taiva. As long as you're eating because you're hungry, it's not a taiva. Taiva begins when you don't need anymore. So now the question is, if you don't need any more, why are you eating? The answer is taiva. In other words, no reason. No reason. In that sense, every mitzvah is a chok. All mitzvahs are chukim. Even the ones that make sense don't make sense. Because what does he need it for? The Eibishter tells us to eat matzah on Pesach so that we will remember coming out of Mitzrayim. What? If we're so bad that we won't remember unless we eat matzah, does he really need this? He needs to put up with us. So he gives us a mitzvah to make sure that we don't forget coming out of Mitzrayim. What does he need this for? It's for us. It doesn't make sense that he needs this. That's why when people quote, it is only for us that God gave the mitzvahs. He doesn't need them. He only gave it to us because he wants us to be good. Hello? He wants us to be good? Why? It's true. The mitzvahs were given to us to make us godly. But why? He needs us to be godly? How godly are we going to get? So the bottom line is, it makes no sense. She said, no, he's just doing it for our benefit. That makes no sense. So create yourself. What does he need it for? So he creates us with needs so that he can take care of our needs. Doesn't make sense. He's already perfect. So again, in practical terms, like in a marriage, you get married not because you're missing something. If you're missing something, then you're going to marry something. That's called ahava hatluya b'davar. You get married not because you're missing something. You get married because you're missing someone. And what is it about that person that you're missing? Nothing. Nothing about the person. Just another person. So if that's what lonely means that ridiculous feeling when you're just by yourself, which you can't explain. There's nothing wrong. You're perfect. And yet you're not content. If that's what you mean by lonely, that's called godliness. And we inherit that from Him because we are created in His image. And just as He is not content being perfect, but needs someone, we have that same thing. A man becomes rich, famous, powerful, he has everything. But no one to share it with, then he feels like he has nothing. Now, when you say to people, does it really matter to the Eibishter whether you do the mitzvah or not? Does it really matter? You're tempted to say, how could it matter? He's perfect. Or like a kid says, if I don't make a bracha, is God going to die? No, he's not going to die. Oh, so what's the big deal? Mitzvahs are not a means to an end. If the mitzvah is necessary to the Eibishter, because without it he'll be damaged, then the mitzvah is only a means to an end. It's like a human being needs to breathe. Well, not really. I need to live. I don't care if I breathe. Living in New York, I'd rather not breathe. But I have no choice. Because without it, I won't live. So breathing is a means to an end. I don't really need to breathe. If I could live without breathing, why would I bother? If I could live without eating, why would I bother? So I don't need to eat. But the Eibishter needs the mitzvah. Why? What's going to happen to him without the mitzvah? Nothing. Nothing. The mitzvah is not a means to achieving something else. The mitzvah is him. So if you don't do the mitzvah, or if you do an aveda, how much is he affected? That's for sure. Well, first of all, he's affected infinitely. And forever. Because he's eternal and infinite. Will it make him less perfect? No. Because it's not for his perfection. You see? So because he doesn't need it for his own perfection, then he needs it more, not less. Does that make any sense? If I can live fine without you, but I don't want to live without you, then do I want you more or less? If I couldn't live without you, then I need you to help me live. But what if I could live without you and I don't want to? Then I need you even more. No? So if I have the freedom of choice to live without you or with you, and I choose to live with you, then I need you more than if I didn't have a choice. That's why when we say Ata B'chartanu, that's greater than a father and a son. Because the father and the son doesn't have a choice. He loves his son because he's his son. What is he going to do? But when you have Bechira, which means you can be with me or without me, and you don't want to be without me, that makes me much more important than a son to a father. So let's go back to the point. Because God is already perfect, nothing can make him more perfect. So he doesn't need us for his perfection. And yet, he creates us, he gives us mitzvahs. That means that he needs us more than we ever imagined. So here's the punchline. It is not perfect in a spiritual sense. It is not perfect to not need anybody. That is not part of being perfect. So a guy who says, I don't need friends, I don't need family, I don't need to be married, I'm perfect. Not good enough. Not needing someone doesn't make you perfect, makes you an animal. If I'm dependent on something, then I'm not well. But if I'm dependent on someone, I'm an angel. Angel. I'm out, yeah. So codependent means I'm dependent on you for my happiness. I'm dependent on you for my identity. I'm dependent on you for my security.
For your love?
Or love.
You're saying that's good?
No. But if I'm dependent on having you in my life, that's so romantic.